Welcome to the Habit Healers Podcast, where small habits create big transformations. I'm Dr. Laurie Marbas, and here we explore the science and the stories behind lasting change. Through real life experiences, expert insights, and practical strategies, we uncover the habits that heal physically, mentally, and spiritually. So, if you're ready to break free from frustration and build a life of health and vitality, you are absolutely in the right place. So let's get started. But right before we do, I'd love to say thank you to our sponsors. This episode of the podcast is proudly sponsored by Fit Vegan Coaching, the world's leading whole food, plant based body recomposition coaching program for those between 50 and 86. It's specifically made to help those looking to lose body fat, build lean muscle to combat sarcopenia, and strengthen their bones to fight osteoporosis. Founded by Maxim Seguin, whose personal journey began after losing his late partner to breast cancer in 2020. Fit Vegan Coaching is on a mission to help 10,000 people get lean, thrive, and reduce risk of chronic illnesses by 2033 and 1 million by 2050 through whole food, plant-based eating, and fitness. This program is the industry leader in whole food, plant-based body recomposition. They've helped over 850 people from 20 different countries transform their lives. I personally went through the program and lost 7% of body fat, gained lean muscle, and even improved my running time, all while feeling energized and healthy. They offer all inclusive services to ensure you reach your goals, from world class accountability to customized strength programs, tailored nutrition, and much more. They will even help you speed up your metabolism post fat loss to ensure the weight doesn't come back. Say goodbye to the yo yo dieting and embrace a lasting transformation. Ready to take charge of your health and vitality? Head over to fitvegancoaching.com and mention Dr. Laurie for exclusive bonus savings when you sign up. Don't miss this opportunity to join this movement toward a healthier, fitter, and more vibrant you. Welcome to the podcast. I'm Dr. Laurie Marvis, and today we have a very special guest, Anne Maillette. How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you.
Excellent. Actually, I don't think I put enough emphasis on Maillette. Maybe that's a better pronunciation.
I'm probably butchering it myself, but it's French, so you're good.
Oh my goodness. Well, I want to tell everyone you definitely want to stay tuned to this story because I think this is going to be a common diagnosis for 1 in 3 Americans, either walking around with prediabetes, diabetes, many don't even know it. So this is a story of healing that we're going to walk through with you. And if we could go back to the beginning, back in 2019, and where you were in your life and, what happened exactly.
Okay, so 2019, you would find my husband and I at probably at the peak of our career. My husband owned his own business and he worked in a neighboring town, and I ran um, an online home-based Christmas business, personalized Christmas stockings. And our life, if there was one word, well, I would say we were workaholics because, and you probably know this, when you own your own business, you wear many hats, and there's a lot to do. You make many decisions, and we work 6 days a week. During the Christmas rush, I was working 7 days a week. So it was a business that took a lot of energy at that point from my life. And I must say, aside from the women that I worked with, it took some joy from my life because it occupied a great deal of my time. My role in the home was to do all the grocery shopping and the food preparation and make the decisions in that area. And we were eating what I thought was a healthy diet, which included meat and cooked vegetables and fresh fruit. Um, I baked occasionally, but I have always been overweight my entire life, except for when I was in eighth grade and I went on Weight Watchers with my mother until I became pregnant with our first child. So, aside from that very short window, I was always overweight. I mean, Even in 4th grade, I was the tallest in the class and the heaviest. I know that because they weighed us all.
Oh my goodness.
I know, shame, shame. So, yeah, one thing I did manage to do was go on a daily walk. And we have long winters here, so I learned to adapt by getting all the right foot gear and coat and everything else. It was important for me just to find some quiet time before my husband came home. Um, because I've got 4 employees that are, asking me questions. It's always decisions to make. I think you might agree.
Hmm.
Um, and it was also very calming for my brain.
Mm.
Um, I garden in the summer. I have for 40 years, and that had, I think, before the business grew to the extent that it was in 2019, it had given me great joy. But now, because it was squeezed into everything else, it was more of a chore. And
Mm.
I was sad about that. But
Mm.
I did believe in knowing where our food comes from. And this was about as close as it could come in terms of knowing where it came from and how it was.
Right.
So, in the fall of 2019, my husband was diagnosed with aggressive prostate cancer. And it was a serious diagnosis. It wasn't stage 4, but it was one stage above. And it was a shock to us, and it was quite concerning for our whole family, not just my
Mm.
husband and I, but everyone. My all 3 daughters, our son-in-laws, and it was a tough diagnosis to receive. We both have considered ourselves in good health, um, and um, out of that decision came 2 wonderful things. The first was before the end of 2019, I decided to discontinue our most popular products so that I could operate the business on my own without employees. It took me
Mm.
a while it wasn't a long time to make that decision, but it took a while to figure out how I was going to get there.
Mhm.
And the other good thing that came out, if you could say that good things come out, and I do believe in silver linings, was that we ended up working with a naturopath for my husband. And um, he was a professor at NYU, and his specialty was prostate cancer. And he recommended a vegetarian diet. And it was not far fetched. It still included some meat, but what it looked like was mostly vegetables and fresh fruit. And, my husband could eat 3 eggs a week. That was the maximum. Limit drastically red meat and chicken and pork. And we didn't really eat pork, but limit the red meats. And we had those maybe 2 or 3 times a month, and
Mm.
then include fish, sardines, wild caught salmon, wild caught cod. And so we readily adopted it. That this is like the part of what we were looking for to support my husband's health.
Mm.
And he responded beautifully. He lost 16 pounds without any problem, and he had way more energy. He was completely energized. He's energetic anyway, but
Mhm.
um, and I lost 5.
Wow.
So, but in hindsight, I call myself the sloppy vegetarian. I have disconnects and things, because I did not, I got into baking sourdough bread, and I was lathering it with butter. And I didn't see butter as, you know, a problem.
Mhm.
But um, so we plugged along like this. My husband is doing very well, I must say.
Mhm.
There is still no sign of cancer. This is almost year 5 we're coming on.
And he did only dietary interventions. Did he do any other type of chemotherapy and radiation or surgical
Everything. He had
Okay.
he had surgery in January. By June or July, he started radiation. That was, probably the roughest.
Yeah.
And then he was on chemotherapy, the testosterone blocking medication, which if you asked him, he would say that was the worst. And
Sure.
so I welcomed into my world of hot flashes so we could make light of it kind of, but it was
Right.
terrible for him. And,
Yeah.
I've been hot flashing for 10 years. So anyway,
Right.
um, yeah, so we plugged along until 2023. And what happened, I let my employees go. We all agreed to finish out the year of 2020. I call it my worst year of my life, supporting my
Mm.
through all these treatments and caring for him, as well as making all these decisions about when to alert our customers, when to tell do I tell my precious employees, um, but it and then COVID, that was
Mm.
expected layer, but we got through it. It worked fine, and in that period from 2020 to 20 end of 2022, we carried on with our diet. I what and my husband continued to work. He's still working.
Wow.
We're just getting into our 70s here. Um, but I was relishing all this new time. I wasn't nearly as busy as I was before. I didn't have as many decisions to make by far. And so I've had on my refrigerator, I have it here. It's a saying, and I can't remember where I found it, but I've had it on my refrigerator for quite a while because I wanted to step into this. I don't know what you call it. It's not a mantra, but it's just a paragraph of what I envisioned for myself. And if I could read that, I'd love.
Yes, please, please.
It might resonate with others, but it certainly resonated with me as I was not, my nervous system had to calm down and I had to find more joy. So it's entitled Play Your Way Through This. Your greatest value to others is when you are joyful. Your greatest value to others is when you are connected. Your greatest value to others is to be radiantly healthy. Your greatest value to others is when you are happy. Your greatest value to others is to have and to be and to do all things that are very important to you. And as you are living that and vibrating that and oozing that and radiating that, then you are a catalyst that is inspiring others to an awareness of that.
Mm.
So I just, kind of held on to that thought and wanted to feel like I was living that. So in the years leading up to the beginning of 2023, I was still gardening, but now it was becoming a joy because I didn't have to squeeze it in. Um, I was quilting. I had learned to quilt a number of years ago. One of my employees taught all of us how to quilt, and the only time I would have to quilt was on a weekends when I would take all of us to a retreat center and we would work on
Mm.
our own projects. And then I'd come home and set everything aside because there's
Mm.
no time.
Right.
I was, yeah. So that was one of the things. And then I was, as I said, I always walked, incorporated a walk in the day. Well, now I could walk to my heart's content. My walk
Mm.
could be any time of day if I didn't have appointments. Yeah, so and reading in the evenings, I never had the bandwidth or the time to read for joy, and
Mm.
so I am good friends with the library now, and um, reading is part of my wind down routine
Mm,
for sleep. Um,
mm,
I'm, really enjoying all these new authors that I've never heard of, and one leads to another. It's quite fun. Um, I learned qigong, uh,
mm,
like Tai Chi, and I had wonderful live sessions times a week with Ali Holden, and he is a master. Um, and he is I mean, he's a real master. It's the medicinal qigong, which I found, like I was more interested in that. I guess there are three forms of qigong, but for me, that was energizing because I just didn't have the energy
mm,
um, coming out of that high, busy lifestyle of work. Uh,
mm,
so it was energizing. I noticed that immediately and calming at the same time, but also it helped with my mobility and flexibility because um, my family will tell you I'm not a stretcher. So this was good. This slow movement with deep breathing was amazing. And I did that for a while too until, um, some of these scheduled live events were they're kind of starting to interfere with dinner just because of the time zone.
mm,
Um, yeah, I should go back to why I decided to downsize my business because there were some things that were really nagging at me.
mm,
Um, One was the quilting that I had to set it aside. I wasn't
mm,
able to do that. The other was our grandchildren. We had two at that time, and they just grow like weeds. And I had wanted to be more present. It was a tradition for us, our my husband and I, to host Thanksgiving with the whole family, and I had to give that up some years because Thanksgiving was the busiest shopping holiday of the year, and I was holding down the fort. I gave my employees that weekend off, and I just had to say no, and that was hard for me. And then the third thing, but not the least by any means, I tried to minimize it in my own mind, was my health. And I felt like I was doing all the right things, but I was still carrying this weight, but I was very anxious. And during the Christmas rush, you would find me on anti anxiety medication
mm,
just to get through the 3 weeks of, we call it, fur flying.
mm,
Crazy. So, it's not just the weight, but the fact that I was not able to manage stress well. And
mm.
I would have heart palpitations, and I was
Wow.
beginning to become concerned, what damage am I doing to
Mm.
so therein lay the reasons, and the opportunity was with my husband's diagnosis.
So you had your own put on the back burner health issues that were cresting and building because stress is a very huge disruptor of your biologic physiology, everything, your mental health, your spiritual health, your physical health, everything. So then your husband had his diagnosis, which propelled you to, there were several things that you loved that you had to create margin in your life to
Right,
actually do. And when you
right.
created margin, you could bring in these healthy healing habits, right?
Yes,
But can
yes.
we walk to, so we saw that pattern in your husband dealing with everything that you guys dealt with. I mean, that's a huge disruptor of your life for sure. Can we speak to your diagnosis of the prediabetes and the timing? And then how did you go from this vegetarian diet, which you had seen some improvement, to a more whole food plant-based diet?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I saw some improvement, but it didn't really show up until I was diagnosed with prediabetes, actually,
Mm.
which sounds contrary, but I'll explain. So, I wanted to search out a functional medicine doctor. I was doing a lot of YouTube learning. In fact, I said I have learning days, where I'm watching a lot of podcasts and I'm bringing in Dr. Barnard and bringing in Dr. Greger, all these greats who've been around a long time with science behind them. And I forget what I was answering. So
The prediabetes diagnosis.
I wanted to seek out a functional medicine doctor. There weren't any to be had. In fact, I'm not even sure they're widely recognized in the state of Wisconsin. Um, so I had to drive 3 hours, and she did do telehealth, which is great. I've never met her in person, but I had to go to her lab for blood work, and that was in February of 2023. And I was diagnosed with prediabetes, high cholesterol, which has always been high, and my inflammatory marker, C reactive protein, was of concern to her. It was high, and she was concerned for my cardiovascular health. And that alarmed me because there's heart disease on my mother's side. The prediabetes really alarmed me because I'm aware of the journey to diabetes and then a whole host of terrible, problems. And so, and also I'm genetically predisposed to diabetes as well as kidney disease. And also my kidney function was not ideal. So I had some things to work on. And I was shocked, honestly. I think just as we were shocked by my husband's diagnosis, you go along in life, yeah, I'm good enough. Well, no, not until you actually see it in black and white and know your numbers. So this doctor put together some habits, I would say. She told me, she said, recommended strength training, which was going to be new for me. She recommended a high protein, high fiber diet. And the amount of protein was something I knew was going to be a very big challenge on a vegetarian diet. I can't eat that much, that many beans to get to 90 to 100 grams of fiber in a day. Yes, my eyebrows went up too. I think
Not
that,
fiber, but protein, you meant?
yes, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, protein.
Protein,
Yeah,
90 to 100 gram. And how tall are you?
I'm 5'2".
You're tiny. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's a lot of protein.
yeah, it is a lot of protein. So, that's when I went to the library, and she recommended the Mediterranean diet. I don't know what that is. There was a course on her through her office that had recipes. And as I looked at the nutritional value of these recipes, I was stunned that there's not more protein. Like, I don't get it.
Hmm.
It's this much protein, and this recipe, if you tripled it, wouldn't even come close. So I
Hmm.
was confused, but I thought, I'm gonna give it the try. I went and got cookbooks at the library, and that sent me in a whole spin because one was keto, one was plant forward. The other two I don't remember, but I ended up returning them and said, I've got to figure this out myself.
Hmm.
The other thing she recommended was intermittent fasting, a 16-8 regimen. Very
Hmm.
challenging for me. I'm a grazer, a snacker, no
Hmm.
snacking between meals, and this seemingly large window where you don't eat.
Hmm.
And so that was also a major challenge. She prescribed a CGM, which I still wear today.
Hmm.
I call it my governor because it will tell me.
It's like on your U-Haul truck, they have the governors when you for the accelerator. That's exactly so funny. Oh my God. That's
This is
good.
my governor. I'm not quite ready to give it up. Um, and I honestly don't know how others with a diagnosis like that, without the information that a CGM provides, how they know how their particular body reacts to different foods.
Mm,
So I'm grateful for all of these tips or recommendations that she made. And it took me about a month and a half to pull it all together. Lots of days
mm,
where I said, oh, like bad messages to myself. Oh, you blew it again. You don't stack
mm,
fruits or whatever, just silly stuff.
yeah.
Because it was probably the perfectionist in me that wanted to pull it all together. And I'm on a mission.
Mm,
Like I don't want to waste time.
mm,
And so in the YouTube world, there was this high protein, low carb diet. Hmm,
mm.
okay. Logically, from the outside, it looked like it made sense.
Sure. Yeah.
And it met my doctor's requirement or recommendation for high protein.
Yeah.
Um, and so I switched my diet. We brought in more meat,
Mm,
made sure it was quality meat, um, which is, funny now. Um, and I waited for my next blood result, blood work through her. And I was a little disappointed. My
mm.
A1C had not changed.
What was your A1C? Do you recall?
It was five. Oh, I recall these things
No question.
because for me, it was really important.
Right.
Information is knowledge. And
Absolutely.
um, so it was 5.7 when I started in February of 2023.
Okay.
And it hadn't changed. My C reactive protein came down just a bit. My cholesterol was up a little bit.
Mm,
Don't know what to make of this. So I
mm,
continue on. And by June of last year, I had more blood work. And that was that was a very difficult it was difficult to see those numbers
mm,
because my A1C was now 5.8. My cholesterol was the highest I've ever seen in my whole life.
mm,
My kidney function wasn't improving. I know I've got some issues there genetically. Don't want to, mess with that. Um, and my C-reactive protein came down a little bit more, but we're still at, I think it was 2.7,
mm. Wow.
and not where we want to be.
Where you
And
want it under one, just let people know. And then the
yeah,
A1C 5.6 and below is normal, but I would even say you probably want to be 5.4 or lower, but go ahead, just to let people know in that general direction where you were heading in the opposite.
excellent. So, we've gone from, we've changed our diet twice already.
Mm,
And, you know, I didn't know what I was going to do.
mm,
I
mm,
put aside Dr. Greger, Dr. Barnard. I put those videos aside while I was doing low carb and wasn't listening to those voices. Um, so, I mean, when I looked at my results, I wanted to pull my hair out. I wanted to cry. I just had this big, remember, it was like a big ball of emotion that I didn't know what to do with because I was so upset and
mm,
disappointed.
mm.
And I had myself to blame. That
Well,
was the part.
no. Yeah.
Um, so it wasn't until I talked with my oldest daughter, who's been plant-based for a while, and she gently asked the important question that I hadn't asked myself, and that is, Mom, since you saw improvement from the vegetarian diet on your cholesterol, you said you never saw your cholesterol so good, even though it's still high. That's the
Mhm.
best cholesterol you've ever had. What do you think would happen if you kept on that path? And I had to think about that. I said, well, I don't know the answer to that. I don't have data.
Mm. Mm.
I'm a
That's the business person in you. It's data.
data-driven girl. I need answers that are measurable to see that. So it didn't take me too long to think, well, I don't know, maybe all those stories that were featured in Physicians Committee with Dr. Barnard and Chuck and everybody else, maybe that could be me. Dr. Furman, the master diabetes, Robbie and Cyrus. Um, you know, I'm not going to waste time here either. So I'm going to go all in. And
Mm.
that meant I was not doing sugar because I wear a CGM.
Mm.
Not doing salt because I don't generally salt my food, and try to be conscious of the salt in our diet.
Mhm.
But the oil was hard to swallow, no pun intended.
Mm.
That piece, I had to research why, even though
Mm.
it was talked about and discussed. I remember Dr. Barnard with it's not a, it's a whiteboard
Mhm.
drawing the image of the cell and, the fat around it and all that. So it was actually Cyrus Kambata's book, Mastering Diabetes, that
Mm.
got through to me. And maybe it was just that I had to read it in black and white
Mm.
to understand it better. Um,
Mm.
so I remember the first night that I told my husband, I said, I don't know how this is going to go, but I'm going to saute vegetables in just a little bit of water. I'm apologizing now. I might burn them. I don't know what to expect. And lo and behold, they were delicious. And my
Mm.
husband loves eating this.
Mm.
Um, and throughout this 8 or 9 month journey that I've been on with whole food plant based, both my husband and I say to ourselves, because he's made some vegetables, he's like, I can do this. And uh, yeah, so we ask ourselves every once in a while, why did we use oil to saute our vegetables?
That's what you're taught, right?
I think so.
Mhm.
I mean, that was, and so things don't stick.
Mhm. That's you. Absolutely.
Right. And to make it more delicious. Well, I would argue now. So
Mm.
once that hurdle was overcome in one meal, I
Mhm.
was on board fully. And I think the algorithm must have changed in this time frame because I was being led to new people that offered delicious recipes, like
Mm.
really good recipes. Um, Jane and Anne Esselstyn, they're
Mhm.
that I bought their plant-based warrior cookbook. Rip had to go to Rip then. Got
Mhm.
his uh, cookbook, Dr. Barnard's cookbook, Dr. Greger's How Not to Die cookbook. So at my age, I thought I would never buy cookbooks again because I basically purged a lot in downsizing our house and our stuff. And now I'm bringing back these, more cookbooks, these wonderful recipes, and
Mm.
um, and then the YouTube videos. Okay, let's bring back Physicians Committee. Let's bring back Dr. Greger, all these wonderful doctors again, and get that message ingrained in my head.
Mm.
Really, if you were to ask me if I had some fears, yes, I still, because I had gone down the wrong path, I was hopeful that what I learned on these YouTube videos with other people's stories was going to apply to me.
Mm,
It's going to be like everything else to heal myself. I wanted to make sure that I was very intentional in what I was doing.
mm,
And yeah, so that's where data is important.
absolutely. So what ended up happening over the last 8 to 9 months for you?
Well, I wear an Aura ring.
Mhm,
Um, gives me lots of data on my sleep and heart rate and all this good stuff. But they were rolling out a new feature in July of 2024 when I was officially starting my journey. It was called cardiovascular health.
mm.
Don't ask me how they're measuring it. I've read it, but it's not sinking in here. Not important.
RA variability, yeah, yep.
Uh, Well,
VO2 max.
yeah, I mean, it measures all those things, but this was new cardiovascular health. Oh, it's
Mhm.
saying it's
Yeah, so
taking.
those are the probably that's probably heart rate variability and your VO2 max, which they're putting together with basically when you exercise, what does your heart do? How long does it take you to recover? All those different things, and that would be probably what the pieces of the information that they're doing to calculate your heart health, your cardiac health, which is really cool.
Yeah, they're also using some little measure, another measurement because it's MS. It's in it's
MS.
eight.
I don't know. I'd have to look it up.
Yeah, but you're probably right there too because they've got all this information already in
Hmm.
programs. So when I started, when this was rolled out, my cardiovascular health, remember, I've got heart disease in my mother's side of the family. So,
Hmm.
um, I was not pleased to see that my cardiovascular health registered at 2.5 years above my cardiovascular age.
Mm.
And
Your biological age.
yeah, thank you. What did I say?
Cardiovascular age, but that's okay. Your biologic age, your actual age, and it
Yeah,
was registering 2.5 years older.
older. Yeah,
Okay. So like if you were 20 and it measured at 22, you're saying, or you were 70 and it was saying, yo, actually your heart health is that of someone who's 72 and a half, is what you were saying.
correct. And but over time, I saw that come down. And some days it was at my actual age, which is
Mm.
this is kind of cool. Maybe things are working. Hmm. And then because I wear a CGM, and you know this because I was asking you,
Mm-hmm.
um, my average blood glucose was coming down slowly, but it
Mm-hmm.
was coming down, and I could eat things that used to bring about a larger spike. And now my spike was normal, and I had to set my bells and whistles alarm level on my CGM down to
Mm-hmm.
a much healthier area, which was actually it's very cool to
Mm-hmm.
actually watch this happen in time.
Mm-hmm.
But the other surprise to me was my weight was dropping. This was not, I'm trying to work on pre-diabetes. While and my doctor, my functional medicine doctor had prescribed that I lose 10 pounds. That was really hard to hear, but I knew I was overweight. And so, and by the way, I had lost 10 pounds on the low carb diet, but then it was
Mm.
rise again.
Yeah.
So I could not reasonably sustain that. So, where was I?
You were need told to lose 10 more pounds, but your weight was dropping.
My weight was dropping on a whole food plant based diet.
So
Lo
how
and
much?
behold, I'm not tracking food, I'm not counting calories. I just happen to be enjoying delicious food.
Mm.
And Michael, my husband, and we don't go out to eat. I like our food better, actually.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And now I understand that that food is probably going to be laden with, oil. And unless I brought my own salad dressing, I would have to say no to bacon or, for a salad.
Yeah.
That's usually a for sure thing that I could have on a restaurant menu. I'd have to apply my own salad dressing, which I've done before.
Right.
Take off everything else. So um, those three things were indicators that wow, things are changing. And regarding my my weight loss, at one point, I'm down to my college age weight, which is my early
Wow.
20s. That's one of the time. That's the only time in my life that 13 years or whatever. I'm down in that zone.
Mm.
But at one point, I said to my husband, "I hope I'm okay. I hope like, I'm serious because it's so unexpected. I've lived with extra weight my entire life.
Mm.
And for this to be shed so easily was mind blowing.
How much weight, do you mind me asking, how much weight did you totally lose now?
14 pounds.
Amazing.
Yeah, it has been amazing.
And kept off, no problems.
Yeah, yeah. So then I was waiting for enough time because I didn't want to see a little eensy weensy change in my blood. I because that would discourage me because I've worked really hard now for, a while. But it was time for my annual, and she always did blood work. And because she knew I had been pre-diabetic, she ran my A1C. So she does not do C-reactive protein, but she does the cholesterol panel, and I would be able to see my kidney function and my liver function. And um, so when I went into the doctor's office, it was in March, early March. The nurse was checking me in, and I said, I'm really nervous about my blood work. If you will be kind enough to do me a favor, and I was kind of joking and yet not. I said, if you look at my blood work and you see that it hasn't changed from last year, will you just tell the doctor not to come in? And she laughed, and I laughed, and later on, before the doctor came in, she snuck her head in the door and she said, "I just saw your blood results. I think you're going to be happy." So now I'm getting excited. And if there was a drum roll, I would, you know, cue it. And but it was an amazing change. I
Mm.
couldn't have dreamed it any better,
Mm.
honestly, because there were some things that improved that I didn't think about or expect. And that was my kidney function and my liver function,
Mm.
um, as well as my A1C, my cholesterol, my total, and my LDL. I cut in half. And
Wow. You mind sharing those numbers?
no, not at all. I'm very proud of those numbers. I should make a T-shirt with numbers that say "Ask me how."
That's a great one. That would be fantastic.
My total cholesterol had been 270.
270?
270. My
Wow.
LDL was 169.
Wow.
And my HDL, which is usually high, was 95. And, so that's great. At least there's a bright spot in all this. And so let's see, I have it right here. Um, my total cholesterol got down to 174.
Wow.
My LDL went from 169 to 85.
Wow.
And then my HDL was down to 79. It's still flagged as high, but
It
even
still didn't need to be high that high. Yeah, for sure. Because you had
right.
less bad cholesterol, so you don't need quite as much good cholesterol. And what did your A1C do?
That went from 5.8 to 5.4.
Amazing. In a matter of 7 months?
8 months.
8 months. Okay.
8 months. And the fun part is to imagine, well, when when did that A1C, because that was my main focus, was the A1C, because that was, well, and the C reactive protein, but and I haven't had that done yet, so I have my
Mm,
blood work coming up in June. um, I am wanting to trust that word is surfacing still, that
hmm.
be in line with everything else that was drawn at my primary visits. So
Fantastic.
yeah, it's, you know, I'm just, and you know what? The meals are easy.
Mm,
That's the fun part. They're not complicated. I think the algorithms in YouTube land, which I wasn't much a part of when between 2020 and 2022, our meals weren't really that great. 'Cause I don't know if I just wasn't led to the right cooks,
yes.
there weren't that many, or, because I had to find recipes. It wasn't something
Wow.
that came, you know, off my head. I wanted to, at least start with a recipe and then I doctor as I saw fit.
And
So,
can you share how you found our group that you meet with us every week?
well, actually, it was your interview with Rip Esselstyn, I think.
Fantastic.
I started checking you out. Uh, and I have to say, that's an integral part of healing is community and support, because
Mm,
I really doubted myself after going, after leading myself down the wrong path, and not seeing improvements. I needed assurance and support, um, for doing the whole food plant based. And, through Dr. Barnard, I realized, oh, lifestyle medicine doctor. Oh my gosh. And so you were the right fit. And I can't thank you enough for answering, because I never come to a meeting without a question,
It's all good. That's why we're here.
for answering all my medical questions, and well, what do you think I could expect, if I'm
Mm,
seeing this, and also from learning from others that are asking
mm,
questions. That's just as important to me. So, um, and I have to say that building community coming out of COVID was challenging for me.
mm.
Um,
Yeah.
this past fall, I joined a quilting guild, and
Mm,
now I'm becoming a joiner. So,
yeah, I
I
love it.
I joined the quilting guild. Um, life is looking much better than 2019.
Yeah.
And work was really massive on our radar and taking
Mm.
lives.
So, how would you say mm, so you went from a anxious, overworked, overstressed, internally metabolically unhealthy human to now you're metabolically healthy in a matter of those years. You went through some tough times, of course, in that journey, right? So you were just looking to improve lab numbers, but what else did you improve? What was that inner transformation, would you say? What was that inner journey? Because you achieved your external goals, but what about
Right.
were there any surprising internal transformations during that journey that we should hear about your journey?
I think just more joy in my life, which was something I
Mm,
wanted to cultivate. And now, our family had a um, one. We made up. We were reading books before the grandkids needed more attention,
right.
and one of them was choosing a word. There was a book out about choosing a word for your year,
Mm,
and so we all lived with that word throughout the year, and then we would come together at the end of the year and talk about, well, how did we do with that word?
mm.
And so I think about the word joy, but now I have more joy in my life, things that are important to me. I'm feeling better, with better sleep, and um, oh, I just lost it. but my new if I had to choose a word now, it would be connect.
Mm,
COVID made me quite fearful about connecting in person.
sure.
Uh, we saw family and we took measures to be very careful when we were meeting. Um, and we even had a wedding. Her youngest daughter got married to a wonderful man. Um, so that was 2021.
Mm, mm,
We did it in a very safe manner with
yeah,
just immediate families. But I would say connection is probably if I had to choose a word for the year, it's that would be my word for the year.
that's awesome.
Connecting with others, and if there's an opportunity, I'd love to be able to not tell my story, but just talk about the power of these habits that I had cultivated and practiced
Mm,
every day, every week,
yeah,
um,
yeah.
to have success for my health. So,
And when you were building the habits, was there a way that you employ them? Did you start small? Did you anchor them? Like, how did you create these habits that lasted throughout this whole time?
well, I had coming into um, working with this functional medicine doctor, I had some things in my favor. I was going for a walk.
Right.
So there was some movement, but overall my life was fairly sedentary.
Mm,
I was hydrating. I've always been a big, well, not always. I was a Diet Coke queen for a while. Ditched that years ago. But I've always enjoyed water now.
mm,
Drink, I'm well hydrated. Um, but when the functional medicine doctor laid out some recommendations for new habits, it was a little bit of a mess. Now, she did
mm,
recommend um, a younger gal, for strength training. And I've got kind of a funny story about this. Um, and I learned that two out of our three daughters follow her and do those
mm.
workouts.
Oh, fun.
So I was like, well, we'll see how I do. It's not going to be pretty for me. But I did my first one and I chose lower body leg workout. I thought, I've got this. I'm a walker. I got this. So I was going through it and, light weights to start with, sometimes body weights, and then starting to fail and fail and fail. By the time I was done, I called our one of our daughters. I said, I could barely get up the stairs. My butt, excuse my language, but um, so I've learned to appreciate. I'm not, my oldest daughter always asks, "Do you like strength training yet?" And it took me probably a year and a half to say, "Yeah, I do." But
Mm,
more than anything else, I appreciate strength training and what it does for my longevity,
mm,
my life going forward and remaining healthy. And I
right,
understood, it took a while to understand strength training and its importance for pre-diabetes and
right,
providing a place for that required, bringing in more glucose. So
right.
yeah, that was a challenging one, but it was like hit or miss, like with um, the diet, uh, even low carb, the little carb I would have would give me such a spike.
Mm,
I was, like, well, what did I do? As I mentioned before briefly, did I stack two fruits? Did I eat two fruits in a row?
mm,
Low carb. Oops, this is too much carb. And I missed
right.
fruit and I
Yeah,
missed grains and I missed some of these things. I
right,
was eating bread as much as I'd like to. I'm still not. I make some sourdough crackers instead, and it's just with the sourdough starter and seeds. And and bake it. So that's my new bread of choice. Crispy.
No, it's fine. That sounds delicious
It
still.
is delicious. It's got rosemary and in it. It's very good. Um,
How would
so
you say you discovered, like, how is the best way that you've learned to implement these new habits? Like, what helped you get over the hump, would you say? Like, when you go to add a new habit, what do you think about?
for me, it's important to know why.
Hmm,
Its importance. I know.
your identity. It's your identity, right?
Well, just if it makes sense to do it, then
Yeah.
yeah, do it. So I'm not, I don't do it 3 days a week.
Hmm.
I aim for two, and most of the time I manage. And I'm still walking every day. So some days I'm doing the strength training and walking. Uh,
Hmm.
yeah, so I forget the question now.
Yeah, so like as far as if you were told, let's say that your doc, let's say was like you should go to 3 days a week. So how did you make that part of your strength training part of your routine for regular? Was it did you anchor it to another
Uh,
habit that you already are doing? Was it a certain time of day? Did you start small and build? What was some of the levers that you pull to make it easier for you to make it a habit?
okay. Um, I knew that I wasn't going to get it done if I didn't get it done in the morning. And I didn't want to sacrifice the new time I had with my husband with coffee in the morning. So it was going to be after he left for work. And the way I knew for sure it was going to happen was I put on my leggings when I got out of bed. And that kind of sets the stage for getting it done. Like that's the expectation. And it was another member of our community who also, she said that. And I thought, oh, that's right.
Hmm.
That's a good thing. So I've been, you know, trying to employ that.
Yeah.
Sometimes nice to roll
It's
out.
Yeah, no, but you know what's important is that you set the time and then you had a cue, which is your leggings. You put those on, which was the first step. It's that first big domino, right? So once you get that big domino starting to kick over, it's more likely to hit all the other dominoes to make it, get to the point where you actually succeed in reaching your goal of doing strength training for the day. So that's so important.
Right.
Remove the friction as much as possible.
Right. Oh, there was a lot of friction around strength training.
Sometimes the friction's in our own heads, right?
Gosh, it was like, but I love to walk. Do I have to give up walking? No. But
No,
I
not at
didn't
all.
that, starting out, and I didn't. So
Mm,
it's
absolutely.
out. I love the results of strength training. I feel very
Yeah.
strong. It's on little things. It's nice to see how much easier it is. And
Yeah.
I have a good friend who, um, I remember her saying that she can't lift. She's older than I am, but she could not
Right.
lift a gallon of milk any longer.
Oh, wow.
It helped, and I thought, boy, okay, I got to get to this because I don't want to be there.
Yeah. No, it's about 8 pounds. So yeah, that speaks volumes, right? And fragility and your risk of falling and so important.
Right.
Absolutely.
Once I got that message, then it had to happen. And I
Perfect.
still get sore. Uh,
Yeah,
I'm
which is
working.
good. A little bit.
I challenge myself. I've now more recently I got 30-pound weights. I
Amazing.
haven't used them yet.
That's okay.
Used my 25s, and uh, another thing I wanted to challenge myself was the farmer's carry.
Yeah.
But I misunderstood the weight amount. So I bought two 45s. I'm sure my mail lady wasn't too happy about carrying those to our front porch. I feel for these carriers, these poor carriers.
Oh my gosh, I know.
Oh, and she had to do that twice because they came one at a time.
Mm,
I made sure when I knew it was coming that I met her at right away at her car. But so I thought, based on my weight, that I had to carry a total of 90 pounds. No, it had to be 90 pounds for each hand. It's like, what? So,
You start slow. Start slow.
yeah, and I pick them up
Starts.
every once in a while, just like, where am I? Where am I?
Yeah, yeah.
Then I'm sore.
Yeah, no, no, that's all good. Well, that's fantastic. Well, I think you have a really important story because it's going to be so relatable to so many people. Like they get that early diagnosis, they've had the high cholesterol for years, you were a high stress situation, everything culminated. You did the things that people do. You went to Google, you went to YouTube, you went to the library, right? And you followed a doctor's advice who didn't give you the clarity that you needed to understand why. So you were just doing your best. So you were doing, quote unquote, a good patient in that sense. I hate that word almost, but you were trying to do what the medical professionals asked you to do, which is amazing, but it led you down a path because you didn't have that personalization and what would work for you and why would you need to do that. So I think that's really important that people understand there's so much nutritional confusion and misguidance. And that's what I love about our group that we can sit and every week talk about what's working, the habits, your diet, your medical questions. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's
integral.
all to me every week, which
Yeah.
I commend you on your end for doing on our behalf because, well, I'll come in with a question for sure, but
Well, there's a
everybody,
good number. Yeah, there's a good number of great questions every week. So you keep me on my toes, all of you.
you make it look easy, but you know, I'm I'm amazed that all of us in this group of yours we're in different places.
Hmm.
Um, but it's exciting to see when things are working for them and they're pulling together some of these habits. And
Yeah.
um, to me, it's mind blowing. It
Yeah.
seems simple, but actually establishing the habits as part of your lifestyle
Yeah.
can be challenging. And, you
Yeah.
know,
But once you learn the skill set, right, of how to create a habit
yeah,
and it's make it as simple and easy as possible, removing that friction. Once you understand those little tools, you can really walk yourself into, and once you understand what those habits should be, like the whole food plant-based diet, the exercise pieces, but not this big goal of I need to eat a whole food plant-based diet or I need to lose this much weight, but let's break
right,
it down, right? Let's make
right.
it simple. So, yeah, the system. You got the
Yeah.
system.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And it's delicious too.
And it's a delicious system. So, fantastic. Well, I think this has been amazing. Thank you for being on the podcast and sharing your story.
Thank you for.
Um, yes. Is there any final words that you'd like to share with the audience that you would like to convey?
I think if someone were hearing this and they weren't sure where to begin, I'd encourage them to, from where they are, just start by changing one thing. And
Hmm.
probably I would recommend either in the movement piece, like if you do a certain exercise for 5 minutes, then add 5 minutes, or if you walk for 5 minutes, challenge yourself to walk 5 more minutes, and then in the diet piece, because I really feel like these are the two most, for me, the most powerful levers. Uh,
Hmm.
but in the diet piece, just make one small change in what you're already eating, and that is
Hmm.
vegetables, just more.
More fiber, just adding. And I would say I would go even further upstream with one thing that you did was that you made a decision to make it easier to put margin in your life so that you could do those things. Maybe it didn't start with your own health, but that
Yeah,
allowed you, it set you up to be successful. And so I think that one decision made multitude of things easier for you.
really did. I can't believe how blessed I feel, uh,
Mm,
how confirmed I was through that period of transition. to have more time
Hmm.
to devote to these things.
Yeah.
I'm very grateful, very
Yeah.
grateful.
Absolutely. But it's the power of that sometimes one decision is very, very
Right.
powerful enough. Because I think in my mind, I would find it harder to, if you were still running like you were in extreme exhaustion and anxiety, to even begin to even consider doing what your doc had asked. So really fascinating how it all worked out, but it always does.
Yeah, I don't think I'd be searching that doc out actually. I would go on Weight Watchers again and
There you go. It
which
is what it is.
cycle. So,
Yep, yep. Forever members. I mean, it works for some people for sure, but awesome. Well, thank you again, Anne, for being here. And we really appreciate you and your time and sharing your story.
oh, thank you. Right.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Habit Healers podcast. Remember, being a habit healer isn't about perfection. It's about choosing healing one habit at a time. So if today's episode resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to download the Habit Healer Manifesto. It is your daily reminder of the identity you're stepping into. So grab it now at the link below or head on over to drmarbas.com and be happy to join our newsletter and so many wonderful resources. And remember, you are always one healing habit away. I'll see you next time.